Hello there, and welcome back to Boring Science for Sleep. If your day has been long, your thoughts a little tangled, or you simply need a quiet companion for the night, you're in the right place. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'd love to know, what time is it for you right now, and where are you listening from? Reading your responses is like watching little lights appear across a darkened map. It's beautiful. Tonight, let's slip quietly into a garden not yet sleeping. The stars are out, the air is cool, and though everything seems still, the plants are very much awake. What are they doing in the dark? Do they rest like we do? Do they breathe when there's no sun? Let's wander into that question together, with no rush to answer it quickly, because sometimes the best way to understand life is to sit beside it quietly, even if it has leaves. So, settle in, close your eyes, and let's begin. It's night. The last rays of sunlight have long disappeared, melting into the cool velvet of the sky. Insects hum somewhere, distant and low. A light breeze glides across the leaves, caressing them with fingers you cannot see. You're in a garden, not one manicured by shears and perfect hedges, but a patch of quiet, tangled green that has grown a little wild, a little freely, just as it likes. At first glance, everything seems asleep. The flowers have closed their petals. The trees no longer stretch upward, but seem to exhale, sinking ever so slightly into their roots. Even the vines rest curled, as if pausing between one long breath and the next. But if you sit still long enough, you start to notice something else. A kind of invisible motion, not the rustle of wind, not the scurry of nocturnal creatures, but something softer, subtler. The plants, though they make no sound, are still very much awake. And in their own quiet way, they are breathing. You might wonder, how can you tell? How do you know when something breathes if it doesn't have lungs? No chest rising and falling, no nostrils drawing in air. But you don't need lungs to breathe. You don't need lips or a rib cage. You just need life. And plants, in every part of their being, are alive, not just under the sun, but even in the hours we often overlook. When daylight fades, humans tend to think of plants as passive things. Photosynthesis, after all, needs the sunday. And if the sun's gone, surely the plant is done too. But this is where it gets quietly fascinating, because night is not the end of the story. It's merely the next chapter. Just as you turn down the lights to rest, plants shift their gears. They don't fall asleep in the way we do, but they change. Their internal rhythms, their cellular clocks, begin a different kind of dance. One tuned not to sunlight, but to silence. Imagine standing beside a tall tree in the dark, its branches unmoving, its leaves still, and yet inside, its cells are buzzing softly. Sugars produced during the day are now on the move, traveling downward to roots, being distributed like small packets of food for midnight repair crews. Roots reach into soil, slowly and steadily, exchanging minerals with microscopic life, like silent trade deals in an unseen economy. The leaves, too, are not idle. Their stomata, tiny pores invisible to your eyes, may open again, letting gases in, letting moisture out. They breathe not in one grand gasp, but in millions of tiny sips. There's also something strangely sacred about this stillness, because at night, the plant no longer reaches for light. It turns inward. Much like you might reflect before sleep, the plant processes the day, converts sunlight into memory, stores energy in the sugars it made, uses that energy to grow in the dark, quietly extending a root tip, reinforcing a stem, building a cell wall one layer thicker than before. This isn't sleep. Not exactly. But it's something like it. A version of rest that doesn't mean stopping, just shifting the tempo. slowing the beat. If you've ever walked through a forest at night, you might have felt this sensation. Not fear, not quietness either, but a kind of presence, as though something is happening, but not for you. The leaves don't rustle to impress. The branches don't sway for applause. The scent in the air, the slightly damp, earthy perfume of nighttime chlorophyll, isn't there to comfort you. And yet, it does. You are, in that moment, a witness to a symphony being played without a conductor, a process older than words, older than lungs, older than night itself. Because long before humans learned to fear the dark, plants had already made peace with it. They had learned not just to survive in its absence, but to use it. To rest, yes, but also to rebuild. To exhale the carbon they no longer need. To move nutrients from root to leaf. To stretch quietly while no one watches. And maybe, just maybe, to dream in green. So the next time you look out your window at midnight and see nothing but silhouettes of trees and bushes, remember, they are not just standing there. They are alive. They are breathing. And they are waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. The night doesn't stop life. It simply makes it quieter. So quiet, in fact, that if you listen carefully, you might just hear a leaf exhale. Let's take a closer look now. Not at the whole plant, but at a single leaf. Just one. Imagine it resting on your palm, a smooth green shape with veins like delicate roads, a quiet softness made to catch sunlight and to breathe. If you bring your focus in, closer still, you'll find yourself stepping into a hidden world, one not visible to the eye, but always at work, always shifting. The surface of the leaf, under a microscope, is not smooth at all. It's textured, patterned, like the surface of the moon, but alive. And in that living landscape, you'll notice something extraordinary. Tiny mouths, hundreds of thousands of them, opening, closing, in rhythm, in silence. They're called stomata, from the Greek word for mouth. And these microscopic portals are how a plant breathes. Each stoma, that's the singular form, is a little doorway. But not a doorway made of wood or metal. It's made of guard cells, tiny, flexible structures that can swell or shrink. When they swell, the door opens. When they relax, it shuts. There's no hand turning a knob, no brain issuing commands. Just water, light, air, and time, moving through the leaf like soft music moves through a room. During the day, when sunlight spills across the canopy, stomata open wide. The plant takes in carbon dioxide from the air, an essential ingredient in photosynthesis. In return, it releases oxygen, a quiet offering to the world around it. You breathe in, the plant breathes out. And neither of you notices the trade, but it binds you just the same. But then, night falls. The sun tucks itself below the horizon. Photosynthesis winds down, and the stomata, they begin to close. Not all at once, not like shutters slamming shut in a storm, but slowly, softly, as if the plant were dimming the lights in its own house. Why? Because without sunlight, photosynthesis cannot happen. There's no reason to keep the doors open. Letting in carbon dioxide now would only waste water, which escapes through those same tiny mouths. So the plant becomes conservative, careful. It closes its mouths to hold on to what it has. But here's the lovely twist. Not all the way. Some plants keep a few stomata partially open, especially in more humid environments or under moonlight. Some desert plants, clever in their survival, reverse the schedule entirely, opening their stomata only at night to avoid the heat of day. This is called cam photosynthesis, a nighttime adaptation, a cool secret trick. And suddenly, nighttime becomes more than rest. It becomes an opportunity, a different way to breathe. Let's return to the leaf now. Imagine you're small enough to walk its surface. It's dark here, not pitch black, but shadowed. A dusky green underworld with domes and pores and folds. You come across one stoma. It yawns open slightly. Inside, you glimpse a chamber filled with vapor. You feel the faint exchange, a whisper of oxygen out, a whisper of carbon dioxide in. You realize that even in darkness, the plant continues to respire. Respiration, unlike photosynthesis, never sleeps. It is the process of breaking down sugars created during the day into energy. And to do that, the plant needs oxygen. Yes, plants need oxygen too. They don't just make it, they use it, especially at night. So they breathe in their own soft way, through stomata, through roots, through cells that never truly stop working. And this system of tiny mouths, it's not chaotic, it's exquisitely timed. Stomata open and close, in tune with circadian rhythms, the plant's internal clock. They respond to humidity, to temperature, to carbon levels, even to touch. Brush a leaf with your fingertip, and some of its stomata may shift in response, not out of fear, but out of awareness. These aren't minds, but they are sensitive to the world, to you. You might ask, why does this matter? Why care about pores you can't see, on leaves you rarely think about, at night when everyone's asleep? Because in those moments, millions of leaves across forests, gardens and meadows are regulating the planet, breathing in gases, releasing moisture, balancing ecosystems. Even now, right now, outside your window, the trees are at work. Your local fern, that stubborn weed in the sidewalk crack, they are all moving air invisibly, contributing to the pulse of a living earth. And perhaps most beautifully, no single stoma makes a sound, no leaf demands recognition, yet their cumulative breath keeps the sky, the soil, and your lungs in conversation. So the next time you exhale, spare a thought for the leaf. It might be exhaling too, right beside you, right now, in silence, in rhythm, in peace. You breathe in, you breathe out, without thinking, without effort. It's the rhythm of being alive. Plants do it too, but with a twist, a quiet reversal, a choreography that shifts with the turning of the earth. During the day, plants breathe one way. At night, they breathe another. Two processes, bound together like dusk and dawn, like inhale and exhale, but not quite the way you do it. This is the story of photosynthesis and respiration, the twin pulses of a plant's life. Let's take a deep, sleepy breath and walk slowly through the difference. Imagine again that we are beside a leaf, gently swaying on a warm afternoon. Sunlight spills across its surface, filling the green with golden purpose. This is when photosynthesis begins. You may have learned the word long ago, maybe in school, maybe in a flashcard, maybe in a haze of half-remembered facts. But here, in this quiet garden of thought, we'll let the meaning unfold gently. Photosynthesis, light and making. Photosynthesis is the way plants make food, not by eating, but by crafting. They take carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, and light from the sun, and they turn it into glucose, a sugar molecule, and oxygen as a gift back to the world. It sounds like magic, and maybe it is. At the center of this process is chlorophyll, the pigment that gives leaves their deep, calming green. Chlorophyll captures sunlight like a solar panel, but softer, more alive. It turns that energy into something usable, starting a chain reaction so elegant that it has fueled forests, flowers, and farms for millions of years. And as the sun shines, the stomata open wide, welcoming carbon in, letting oxygen drift out into the air. Plants, during the day, are givers. They breathe out what we need. They store sugar for the night to come. But then, the light begins to fade, and the breath begins to change. Enter respiration, a quieter process. A more internal one. Photosynthesis ends with the sunset, but respiration, that goes on. All living things need energy, and respiration is how energy is released. Plants use the glucose they made earlier, and now, in the absence of sunlight, they burn that sugar gently, not with fire, but through chemistry inside each tiny cell. They take in oxygen and break apart the glucose, releasing energy for growth, repair, and survival. The byproducts? Carbon dioxide and water, breathed out in the dark. It's almost the reverse of photosynthesis, a mirror process, a nocturnal reflection. So here is the beautiful paradox. During the day, plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. At night, they take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide, breathing forward, breathing backward, a quiet two-step that the world rarely notices. But it is this very balance that keeps forests living, crops growing, and your breath dancing in harmony with green things. Now, let's pause and zoom in. Can we feel it? Not with hands, not with ears, but with imagination. Inside every cell of the plant, from root tip to tender stem, tiny engines called mitochondria are at work. Yes, even plants have mitochondria. And yes, even at night. These are the energy factories, the tireless workers of respiration. They hum quietly, breaking down the sugars stored during the day, powering the unseen tasks of life, stretching a root, healing a wound, sending signals from one part of the plant to another. There is no applause, no headlines, only function, only life. But why does this matter? Because even in darkness, plants are not passive. They are metabolizing. They are breathing in reverse. They don't photosynthesize, but they continue to live. And living means consuming energy. This is why the forest isn't silent at night. Not truly. It may not buzz with photosynthesis, but it glows with respiration. And while the oxygen levels don't plummet, because daytime makes up for it, the dance of exchange continues, even when all seems still. If you've ever been near a large greenhouse at night, you might notice something odd. The carbon dioxide levels rise. It's not dangerous, but it's real. Because with no sun to power photosynthesis, plants shift fully to oxygen consumption, a reminder that they, too, need to breathe in. A reminder that life, even in stillness, requires energy. And so, this cycle goes on, day and night, light and dark, photosynthesis, respiration, make sugar, burn sugar, exhale oxygen, inhale oxygen. Not a contradiction, but a complete breath. One that stretches across time, across seasons, across generations of trees and ferns and flowering weeds. And in that breath, our own is anchored. So next time you pass by a tree, maybe place a hand on its bark, not to hear anything, not to expect a pulse, but to remind yourself that even when it looks motionless, even in the moonlight, there's work being done, a breath you cannot see, a rhythm you share. You exhale what it needs. It exhales what you need, even when your eyes are closed, even when it's too dark to see. The breathing continues, forward, backward, together. You've looked at the leaves, you've watched the stems sway, you've felt the soft whisper of green life above the soil. But tonight, We're going deeper, down where the air thins, where sunlight never reaches, where the ground cradles secrets older than the stars above, down into the roots. We often think of roots as simple anchors, support beams, silent threads holding a plant in place. But they are more than that. So much more. Roots are the hidden half of the story. And they are alive, always reaching, always feeling, always, yes, breathing. Close your eyes. Imagine lying face down on soft earth, your cheek pressed gently into the moss. Beneath you, centimeters down, the soil is not silent. It is a world of quiet movement. Roots extend in every direction, hair thin and fragile at the edges, thicker and stronger near the base, each one twisting through darkness, not randomly, but with purpose. They are searching for moisture, for minerals, for connection, and with every inch they grow, they are breathing. You might ask, how can roots breathe underground? They have no lungs, no mouths, no access to open air, and yet they live. The secret is in the soil itself. It's easy to imagine dirt as dead, dry, heavy, compact, but real, living soil is something else entirely. It's porous, alive, laced with tiny pockets of air, carved out by worms, insects, and the rain. These pockets hold oxygen, enough for the roots to draw in slowly, gently, patiently, not in big gulps, but in molecular sips. Through microscopic openings in their root cells, plants take in oxygen from the soil, using it to power the same respiration you met earlier above the ground. The oxygen moves inward. The glucose, made during the sunny hours, is already there, waiting. The reaction happens deep inside. Energy released, carbon dioxide exhaled, a breath no one hears. But what happens to that carbon dioxide? It doesn't float away like it does from leaves. There's no breeze underground. Instead, it dissolves into soil water, then makes its way through the spaces in the earth, sometimes used by other organisms, sometimes rising back to the surface, in the gentle exhalation of the ground itself. And roots do not breathe alone. Oh no, they are surrounded by life, microscopic life, invisible civilizations, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, arthropods, a rich, humming, breathing network of creatures, many of which are also drawing oxygen, also releasing carbon, also alive in the dark. The soil, it turns out, is not just a resting place. It is a breathing ecosystem. Every spoonful of it contains more living things than people on Earth, and many of them are helping the plant, feeding it, protecting it, trading with it, breathing alongside it. One of the most wondrous partnerships is between plant roots and mycorrhizal fungi. Imagine long thread-like filaments of fungi wrapping themselves around root tips, gently entering the outer layers. This is not an invasion, it's a handshake. The plant shares sugar with the fungus. The fungus, in return, helps the plant absorb more water, more phosphorus, more nitrogen. Together, they thrive. Together, they breathe. And like the plant, the fungi need oxygen too. They too rely on those air pockets in the soil. When the soil becomes compacted, when it's stepped on too much, or flooded, or stripped of life, those pockets vanish. And so does the breath. Roots need space, not just to grow, but to stay alive. When oxygen runs low, when the soil becomes too wet, roots begin to suffocate. The respiration slows. Cells begin to die. And the plant, so graceful above, begins to wither from below. It's a reminder. a quiet one, that even unseen life needs to breathe. That life underground is just as delicate, just as precious as what we see in the sunlight. There is something humbling about this, knowing that beneath your feet, a tree is pulling air into its roots, not from the sky, but from the tiny breath holes in the earth itself. Knowing that the grass beneath your window is breathing all night long, from tips of blades to the roots that kiss stone, it makes the earth feel more alive, more tender, more deserving of your gentleness. And it doesn't end there. Roots communicate, not with sound, not with words, but with chemicals, with hormones, with slow signals that travel through the soil, like whispers through a long hallway. Some plants warn their neighbors of danger. Others seek support. Still others recognize kin and grow around them, not into them. All of this happening in the dark. And all of this requiring breath. Because nothing in the body works without energy. And energy requires oxygen, even in the dirt, especially in the dirt. So tonight, as you lie in bed, I think not only of the stars or the branches swaying outside your window. Think of the roots, the breath beneath, the quiet, constant respiration of a life unseen. Imagine your own breath mirroring theirs, your inhale as their exhale, your stillness as their motion. And remember, not all breath happens in lungs. Some happens in silence, in the earth, in the dark, where life goes on, rooted, rhythmic, and real. Imagine a world where time has stopped, where light has disappeared behind thick clouds, and night stretches longer than it should. No dawn. Not yet. For a plant, this isn't just poetic. It's real. The sun does not always shine. Sometimes clouds gather for days. Sometimes seasons change, casting long shadows for weeks. Sometimes the world grows cold and the light becomes scarce. And yet, plants do not panic. They don't race. They don't shout. They simply endure, quietly, gracefully, with strategies as ancient as breath itself. Let's wander into that silence together and learn how plants, in the dark, find a way to keep living. The first thing to remember is this: plants cannot survive on darkness alone. They are not like fungi or deep-sea creatures. They are creatures of the sun, built to harvest light, to craft energy through photosynthesis. But they are also masters of patience, because the sun doesn't shine all the time. And when it doesn't, plants have a plan. They store the light. Not the rays themselves, but the energy. When the sun is out, leaves turn carbon dioxide and water into sugars. These sugars are the plant's savings account, a pantry, a backup generator. Some is used right away, but some is tucked away in roots, stems, even thick tubers hidden underground. So when darkness falls, when the skies stay grey, or when night lingers a little longer than expected, plants dip into their reserves. They switch from making energy to spending it. They continue to breathe through respiration, using oxygen to break down their stored sugars into small, usable bursts of energy. This lets them repair, grow, maintain life, all without the Sunday. It's not infinite. The pantry will empty slowly, but if the plant is wise with its savings, it can survive many nights, many storms, many winters. There's something profoundly calming in that. This idea that even when light disappears, you don't need to panic. You just breathe smaller, move slower, use what you have. Not everything needs to be done today. Not everything needs to grow at once. Sometimes, waiting is living. And so plants enter a kind of standby mode in extended darkness. Not sleep, not death, but a slowing. Cell division tapers off. Growth pauses. Leaves may droop gently, conserving water. Even the stomata stay more tightly closed, preventing excess loss. The plant listens carefully to the world. The temperature, the humidity, the faintest hint of returning light. It holds its breath, not in fear, but in trust. That light will return. That life will resume. And it always does. But not all plants face darkness the same way. Some live in places where darkness is part of the rhythm. Near the poles, entire months pass with little to no sunday, and plants have adapted in extraordinary ways. Some store more sugars, others enter dormancy, a deep, restful pause where metabolism drops to almost nothing. Their breathing slows, their cells huddle, their energy usage drops like a whisper. They do not move, but they are not gone. They are waiting, like a bear in hibernation, like a bulb under snow, like a thought held for later. Then there are seeds. Oh, the marvel of seeds. A seed can sit in complete darkness for days, months, sometimes decades. It has no leaves, no light, and yet inside, a sliver of life hums, not growing, not breathing much, just ready. A seed contains everything it needs. To begin, a small store of sugars, a protective coat, a memory of light it has never known, but was designed to follow. It waits until the moment is right. Moisture arrives. Warmth touches the soil. A faint tickle of sun returns. And then, the breath begins. The growth begins. But never too soon. Never rushed. The darkness, it turns out, was not the enemy. It was the cradle. Even tropical plants, those basking in equatorial light, I know how to rest at night. They don't shut down, but they lower their pulse. They breathe slower. They move water gently. They use just enough energy to stay whole. Their guard cells close most of the stomata. Their roots dial back their reach. Their chemistry turns inward. It's like meditation, a green, leafy meditation under moonlight. And in that pause, there's no panic, just peace. Let's think about this differently now. Let's look inward. You are not so different from a plant. You need light, yes, but you also need rest. You need nourishment, but also stillness. When your world dims, when the day ends or the storm rolls in, you don't stop being alive. You slow down. You hold your breath a little. You wait with intention. You let your roots do their quiet work. You let your body remember how to be whole, without always producing. There's something almost sacred about the idea that growth continues, even when unseen, that a plant, in total darkness, can still stretch a cell wall, still sense the direction of gravity, still repair a small tear, not because it's trying to prove anything, not because it's racing anyone, but because living is enough, even in the dark, especially in the dark. So tonight, if you feel like the sun has slipped a little too far, if you're unsure of the light's return, if you're in your own kind of winter, think of the plants. Think of the breath they hold, how they wait, how they conserve, how they trust that dawn always returns. Let that be your lullaby, a green whisper from the roots of the earth. You don't have to grow tonight. You only have to rest. You are not failing. You are conserving. And the light will come again. Close your eyes just for a moment. Picture a single blade of grass, gently rocking under moonlight. You might think it's still, unmoving, unaware, untouched by time. But look closer. Look with your inner sense. You'll see a rhythm, a pulse, a pattern that repeats, not just because the sun comes and goes, but because the plant remembers when to move, when to rest, when to breathe. This memory, this internal sense of time, is called a circadian rhythm. And yes, even plants have one. It may surprise you. We often associate circadian rhythms with humans, our 24-hour sleep cycles, our morning yawns, our late-night cravings. But this biological clock isn't ours alone. It is ancient, woven deep into the fabric of life. Almost every living thing on Earth, from you, to birds, to mushrooms, to that sleepy houseplant in the corner, has an internal rhythm, a quiet conductor inside their cells, marking the hours with no watch, no ticking, no bells, just chemistry and memory, and a steady beat that runs, even in complete darkness. Let's go back in time, not centuries, but just a few decades. In a quiet laboratory, a scientist places a mimosa plant in a dark room. This is the kind of plant whose leaves fold in when touched. Sensitive, expressive. But in this case, the plant isn't being touched. It's just observed. And even with no sunlight, even with total blackness, the leaves open and close on a schedule, as if the sun was still rising and setting. The plant remembers, not with thought, but with rhythm. Its cells follow a schedule, written not in ink, but in genes. This is circadian rhythm in action, a kind of green dreaming. Inside every plant cell, certain genes turn on and off, in a 24-hour cycle. These genes control when the stomata open, when energy gets stored, when growth happens, and even when flowers bloom. Yes, flowers too follow the clock. Have you ever noticed how some flowers only open in the morning? Or how others wait for dusk to reveal their petals? They're not responding to the light directly. They're responding to time, internal time. Even in complete darkness, they'll still bloom, on schedule, because somewhere deep inside, they know what time it is. But where does this clock come from? It's not in one place. It lives in many, in networks of cells that keep each other on beat. Think of it as an orchestra without a conductor. Each instrument listens to the others. Each player adjusts slightly, keeping the melody alive through shared timing. Sunlight acts like a gentle tap on the shoulder, a daily nudge to keep everything aligned. But even when the sun disappears, the rhythm continues, not perfectly, but persistently. Plants don't just react to the world, they anticipate it. They open their stomata before the sun rises. They begin storing sugars before night falls. They even begin slowing respiration as midnight approaches. Because to breathe wisely, you must know what time it is, even without a clock. Now imagine a forest. You walk under its canopy at night, and all seems still. But if you could tune in, just for a second, you'd hear the quiet rhythm of 1,000 plants, keeping time together, not by talking, not by thinking, but by remembering. The leaves in the treetops are slowly closing. The roots are shifting energy. The flowers are tucking themselves in, each plant keeping pace, with a song written in molecules. Circadian rhythms also help plants conserve. They time their breathing, through stomata, to match the rhythm of the world. If they opened too soon, they'd lose water. If they closed too late, they'd miss out on carbon dioxide. So instead, they open just before light arrives, and they begin closing just before it fades. They act not from impulse, but from expectation, a wise kind of breathing, like sleeping with one eye open to the stars. Even when something changes, like a storm blocking the sun or a shift in temperature, plants still try to keep their rhythm. It helps them stay anchored in a changing world. Their rhythm may drift, but it always tries to find its way back. The way a melody, once heard, can find its note again, even after silence. There's another side to this rhythm too. When plants get stressed, from drought, heat, or poor soil, their circadian clocks begin to wobble. Genes turn on at the wrong time. Breathing becomes inefficient. Growth slows. It's as if the internal orchestra loses its beat. And slowly, the music becomes harder to play. But give the plant rest. Give it care, water, time, and often the rhythm returns. Resets. Because plants, like people, can recover their timing, their breath, their balance. Let's pause here. You too have a rhythm. One that knows when you need sleep, when you feel alert, when you need light, when you long for stillness. Sometimes it falls out of sync. You stay up too late. You scroll too long. The days blend. But inside, your body remembers. It wants to return to the rhythm, just like the plants. So tonight, as you slow your breath, as the light dims in your room, let your own circadian melody begin to play again. Let your cells remember what the forest knows. Let your body, like a leaf in moonlight, softly align itself with rest. And tomorrow, when the sun peeks in again, your leaves, invisible as they may be, will open wide, ready to breathe, ready to begin. Because even in the dark, you've been dreaming in green. Take a slow breath in, and now a slow breath out. Somewhere, far from cities and concrete, a forest is doing the same. Not one tree, but thousands. Not one breath, but a symphony. Each leaf a tiny lung, each root a steady pulse. Each tree a quiet companion in the rhythm of night. And what's most remarkable is this: they are not breathing alone. The forest, even at midnight, is far from still. Step beneath the canopy, and you may hear nothing but your own footsteps. But just beyond the range of your ears, something remarkable is unfolding. The trees are talking, not with voices, but with chemistry. Not with sound, but with breath. You've heard of photosynthesis, the daytime act of turning sunlight into energy. And you've heard of respiration, the nighttime act of using that energy to survive. But now imagine that happening, not just in one tree, but in 1,000, in sync, in rhythm, as if the forest were a single living body. At night, when the sun is gone, a forest exhales. All day long, plants have stored up sugar. Now, in darkness, they break it down for energy. And as they do, they draw in oxygen and release carbon dioxide, the quiet reverse of the daytime breath. If you could measure the air just above the soil at night, you'd find a rise in CO2 levels, a gentle, invisible fog of breath, rising from the roots, from the leaves, from the very earth itself. But the forest doesn't just breathe, it listens. Trees, it turns out, are aware of each other, not in the way people are. No thoughts, no feelings, but in a networked kind of way. They are connected, literally. Beneath the forest floor, fungi weave their threads through the soil, reaching from root to root, tree to tree. This underground network, called the mycorrhizal network, or sometimes the wood wide web, allows trees to share water, nutrients, and even chemical signals. It is through this web that one tree might help another survive a drought, or warn others of a pest, or steady its breath when a neighbor is struggling. At night, when the world above sleeps, this network hums quietly beneath the surface, carrying the breath of one tree to the awareness of another. Let's imagine a specific scene. It's past midnight. The moon casts soft silver light across a dense woodland. The air is damp and rich with the smell of soil and pine. You place your hand gently on the trunk of an old beech tree. What you cannot see is that this tree is breathing in slow, steady patterns. And so is the fir beside it, and the birch 2 trees down, each one slightly different, but all following a shared pulse. They are drawing oxygen through the air and soil, using it to unlock the sugars made during the day. They are, in every real sense, alive in the dark. And what's more, they are coordinated. Forests are known to exhibit entrainment, a term in science that means organisms syncing their rhythms with one another. Fireflies do it when they flash together. Birds do it when they flock. And trees do it with breath. This synchronization helps conserve resources. It prevents water loss. It even helps forests prepare for the return of light. In tropical forests, scientists have found patterns where trees open their stomata and close them in a rhythm that matches the entire canopy. No single tree leads. There is no conductor, just a shared, ancient understanding of how to breathe together. And it's not just trees. Shrubs, grasses, mosses, all breathe at night. All join the slow chorus. Even soil microbes, the invisible majority, participate in this nightly exchange. They help decompose fallen leaves, release nutrients, and in doing so, release their own breath into the air. The forest is not a collection of separate lives. It is one enormous, coordinated respiration. Sometimes, forests even pause their breath. In very dry conditions, or under stress, some plants enter a kind of holding pattern. They close their stomata tightly, slow their metabolism, and wait. Their breath becomes faint, like the shallow rise and fall of someone in deep sleep. Then, when conditions improve, the breath resumes. The forest exhales again. It is a beautiful reminder that stillness is not failure. It is wisdom. Breathing together also means feeling together. Trees exposed to sudden cold can send signals underground. Neighboring trees then begin producing protective proteins before the chill reaches them. It's as if one breath shivers and the others pull on a blanket. In silent response, this is not thought, not empathy as we know it, but it is something eerily close. Biological awareness, a kind of whisper, passed root to root, leaf to leaf, all while the forest floor glows faintly with dew. Now let's zoom out. You, in your bed, your breath slowing, your body surrendering to sleep. Somewhere, a forest is doing the same. The trees do not sleep as we do, but they rest. Their growth slows, their energy softens. They prepare for tomorrow. And in that slow rhythm, you and the trees are not so different. You breathe out carbon dioxide. They breathe it in. They breathe out oxygen. You breathe it in. Your lungs rise and fall. Their leaves open and close. You sleep. They wait. And in that silent exchange, there is peace. So the next time you walk through a forest, don't just look, listen. Not with your ears, but with your attention. Feel the breath around you. The way the air seems to sigh between the trees. The way a glade feels heavier at night, not from fear, but from breath. Accumulated. Shared. You are part of that rhythm. Always have been. Always will be. And now, as you lie still, let the forest breathe for you. Let the trees, in all their ancient memory, to rock you gently with their exhale. You are safe. You are cradled in green breath. The world is breathing, and so are you. The night is almost over, but not quite. There is a moment, soft, quiet, almost sacred, when the sky still holds its darkness, yet the earth begins to stir. You know this time. You felt it when the air is coldest, when birds have not yet sung, when even the wind seems to hesitate. It is the blue hour before sunrise, and in this space between night and light, the world's breathing changes. Let us go to a forest once more, one we've walked through in imagination many times tonight, but this time we arrive just before dawn. The trees have been resting, respiring gently in the dark, their stomata mostly closed, their energy conserved. The soil is damp, the air is rich with carbon dioxide, slowly exhaled during the night. Everything feels still, but beneath that stillness, there's anticipation, because light is coming, and the plants know it, not because they see it yet, but because their internal clocks to have been counting every moment. Circadian rhythms, ancient and precise, are reaching the edge of their loop, and like an orchestra preparing for the downbeat, plants begin to adjust. Their breathing, once slow and narrow, begins to shift. Their guard cells, long relaxed, receive a quiet signal: prepare. The stomata, one by one, begin to open. Not fully, not all at once, but gradually, like eyelids fluttering open after a long, deep sleep. And it's not just the leaves. Roots begin altering their intake. More water begins moving upward, ready to support the work of photosynthesis. Enzymes awaken, stretching their molecular limbs. Proteins change shape. Gene expression begins to shift. All of this before a single ray of sunlight touches a single cell. This is the prelude to light, a symphony of preparation that happens in the hush. In many plants, especially those in open fields, this shift is dramatic. Stomata go from almost closed to wide open within minutes of sunrise. Why? Because morning light is golden, gentler than harsh noon, and it brings cooler temperatures and higher humidity, perfect for maximizing photosynthesis, without risking too much water loss. The plant seizes this window. It breathes deeply, hungrily, gratefully. But before that rush begins, there is this pause, this suspended breath. And it is here, in this moment, that we find something truly magical. For in that pause, plants are neither fully resting nor fully awake. They are becoming a quiet transformation as cells prime themselves for work, as stored sugars begin to flow, as the respiration of night hands off the baton to the photosynthesis of day. The exchange is seamless, like two dancers switching partners without breaking rhythm. One breath slows, another begins, and you, as a sleepy traveler in this story, get to witness the change. Even indoor plants do this. Even your potted fern on the windowsill, your snake plant in the corner, they stretch in the dim light. Long before sunrise reaches your curtains, they're not reacting, they're remembering. Their genes, their enzymes, their tissues, all have been here before. Every cell contains a record of mornings past, and so they know, in some unspoken way, that the time has come to breathe differently. Meanwhile, the air begins to shift too. During the night, carbon dioxide built up around the plants. But now, as stomata open and photosynthesis prepares to begin, that CO2 will soon be drawn back in, absorbed by leaves, transformed into sugars. The atmosphere above the forest changes, ever so slightly. A molecular dance begins again. Oxygen levels too will rise. With every breath of photosynthesis, the forest will start to exhale, not carbon, but oxygen, and the entire world will, slowly, gently, awaken. This transition, this pre-dawn breath, is not unique to plants. Many animals, too, shift their physiology just before morning. Birds begin to sing, but only after their bodies have released hormones signaling the approach of light. Insects stir, frogs grow silent. Even humans, asleep in warm beds, start to shift their breathing as melatonin fades and cortisol begins to rise. All life, it seems, feels the approach of dawn, and plants, in their quiet way, lead that chorus. Think of it like this. You are watching the first breath of a world about to begin again. Each day, the planet resets, not with a bang, but with a breath. And plants, those humble, rooted beings, are the first to draw it in. Their stillness is not inaction, it is awareness. Their breath is not passive, it is participation in the making of air, in the shaping of atmosphere, in the birth of morning itself. Let's sit here a moment longer. Let the sky begin to pale. Let the rhythm change. The plant you imagine, perhaps a tree, perhaps a vine, perhaps just a patch of clover, is now breathing a little faster. Still quiet, still gentle, but different. You can almost feel the pulse of photosynthesis waking up. You can almost hear the leaves beginning their work. And though this all happens in silence, it is the beginning of everything. You might feel a gentle alignment now, as if your own breath is syncing with the forest, as if your cells, like theirs, I know that the day is coming, but that this moment, this breath before dawn, is a gift not to be rushed. So stay here a while. Not yet morning, not quite night. A soft blue world where breath slows, not from exhaustion, but from reverence. The plants know it, and now, so do you. You've heard it before. Everything needs sleep, but does it? You sleep. Your dog sleeps. Birds doze. Even jellyfish seem to drift in and out of something like rest. But what about that tree outside your window? Or the potted basil on your kitchen sill? Do they sleep? Not exactly, but not either. In the quiet hush of night, plants enter something softer than slumber, not full sleep as animals know it, but a state of restful awareness, a moonlit balance between work and stillness. Let's explore this together, one breath at a time. To sleep, in the animal sense, is to disconnect. Your brain shifts gears. You become unaware. You stop responding to the world. Your consciousness wanders into dreams. Plants do not have brains, no neurons, no REM cycles, no cozy blankets or bedtime yawns. But they do have rhythms. They do have rest. And they do have cycles of energy that ebb and flow across the day. So while a plant doesn't sleep in the way you do, it still knows night from day, and it behaves differently in the dark. During daylight, a plant is busy. It stretches its leaves toward the Sunday. It opens its stomata to take in carbon dioxide. It captures photons and crafts sugar. It is, in every sense, awake. But when darkness comes, the chemistry changes. Photosynthesis winds down. Stomata may close to conserve water. Growth slows. Genes tied to daytime activity quiet themselves. And new genes, nighttime ones, take the stage. It's not sleep. It's switching gears. Imagine a quiet night crew coming into the factory after the bright and noisy day shift. The lights dim. The work slows. But the plant doesn't shut down. It simply softens. This softness is visible too. Many plants show clear movements when night falls. Leaves fold inward, petals close. Some stems droop ever so slightly. Scientists call this nyctinasty, movements triggered by darkness, often linked to circadian rhythms. The prayer plant, for example, raises its leaves upward at night, as if in meditation. Come morning, the leaves lower again, ready to absorb light. Other flowers only open at dawn, and close at dusk, a gentle breathing of the bloom. With the hours of the Sunday, these motions are not sleep in the neural sense, but they are signs of restful transition, a botanical exhale, but perhaps the most profound sign that plants rest is found not in motion, but in metabolism. At night, the chemical pace slows. Enzymes responsible for photosynthesis go quiet. Sugars made during the day are carefully rationed. Water movement decreases. The plant conserves, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It knows when to act and when to wait. And in the moonlight, waiting is everything. In contrast to animals, plants never truly switch off. Even at midnight, some roots continue to grow. Some cells divide. Repair continues. If a branch is damaged, the healing begins, even in the dark. And while you may be dreaming, the tree outside may be adjusting its tilt, realigning its leaves ever so slightly. For tomorrow's Sunday, this is what makes plant rest so extraordinary. They are never unconscious, never lost to the world. Their night is not a blackout. It's a quiet shifting of purpose. And yet, there are echoes of sleep. Sleep, for animals, serves many purposes: memory consolidation, repair, energy conservation. Plants do all of these, just differently. They repair wounds at night. They manage energy. They consolidate molecular messages, a kind of green memory, not stored in neurons, but in gene expression and chemical feedback loops. They don't close their eyes, but they do close inward. They don't dream, but they do respond to cycles larger than themselves. You may be wondering now, why not just shut down completely? Why keep any activity going at night? The answer lies in balance. Plants must always be ready for predators, for frost, for shifting weather. Their nighttime awareness helps them respond, even when the light is gone. And in some cases, the night is when the work begins. Consider cam plants, like cacti or succulents. They live in hot, dry places, where opening stomata during the day would lead to water loss. So they flip the script. They breathe in carbon dioxide at night, store it as malic acid. Then, during the day, they use that stored CO2 for photosynthesis, all while keeping their stomata closed, to conserve water. These plants do not rest at night. They inhale under moonlight and exhale into light. Their rest comes not from stopping, but from reversing. And what about moonlight? Does the moon affect plants? It does. Though faint, moonlight is still light. And for some plants, especially those sensitive to photoperiods, moonlight can subtly influence their rhythms. Even artificial light, street lamps, porch lights, can affect plant timing, just as it can confuse your own sleep cycle. The night, once pitch black, is now speckled with glow, and plants notice. They may adjust flowering times, delay stomatal closure, or shift gene expression by mere minutes or hours. Not sleep, but sensitivity. So, let's return to our question. Do plants sleep? Not like we do, but they rest. They pause. They adjust. They soften their breathing, lower their energy, and wait for light. With patience older than dreaming, their night is a watchful one, a breath held lightly, a song hummed under their breath. And in that space, that pause between action and awakening, they teach us something profound. You don't need to disappear to find rest. You don't need to be unconscious to be calm. You can remain aware, still, rooted, and yet be resting deeply. like a tree under moonlight, like a leaf curled gently in the dark, like a root pulsing with quiet strength. So tonight, as you lie in your bed, with eyes closed and breath slow, imagine yourself as a plant, not sleeping, but becoming quiet, allowing your energy to flow inward, allowing your thoughts to soften, allowing your body to do the gentle work of healing, restoring, breathing. You are not off. You are simply rebalancing. And when the morning comes, as the light finds its way to your window, you will awaken, not as someone who stopped, but as someone who rested with purpose, like a plant, like a breath, like the quiet, moonlit wisdom of something that never stopped being alive, not even for a moment. Close your eyes now, if you haven't already. Let the day drift far, far behind you. Let the world grow quiet. And imagine this, a single leaf, suspended in the stillness of night. Its color a deep, sleepy green, its edges soft with dew, its body breathing, slowly, in and out, under a sky full of stars. It is not blooming. It is not stretching. It is not striving. It is simply being. And somehow, that's enough. In this final chapter of our sleepy journey, let's stay here, with the leaf, with the breath, with the quiet strength of plants, because while science has shown us how they function, with stomata and roots and photosynthetic cells, there's something deeper we carry away from this exploration. The way plants live in rhythm with the world, not against it, not in defiance, but in harmony, season by season, night by night. And in that rhythm, we find an ancient kind of resilience. You see, plants endure not through speed or force, but through patience. A tree doesn't rush to grow. It builds its rings in silence, year after year, holding sunlight in its bark, rainwater in its roots, memory in its wood. It knows how to rest without quitting. It knows how to bend without breaking. It knows how to pause. And isn't that something we forget sometimes? The world we live in rewards momentum, more, faster, now. But the forest teaches something else. That rest is not absence. It's participation of a different kind. It's a recalibration, a soft remembering of what matters, a willingness to let go of control and trust that things still move, even when we stop. The plant breathes at night, not to win, but to survive with grace. Its resilience isn't in never being harmed, it's in recovering when it is. Some plants lose all their leaves in winter. They strip themselves bare, in anticipation of dark months ahead. And yet they survive, because they trust the cycle. They conserve energy. They breathe slower. And then, when the time is right, they begin again. Isn't that reassuring? That we too are allowed to have winters. That quiet seasons don't mean failure. That our roots can grow deeper, even when nothing appears above the surface. That's what the plants know. Even their injuries are quiet lessons. A branch breaks, new shoots sprout near the wound. The scar becomes a part of the trunk, strengthening the structure, not weakening it. They do not erase damage. They integrate it. They do not deny hardship. They adapt. In this way, plants show us that resilience isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about breathing through it, slowly, intentionally, and continuing on, and still they rest. They turn inward at night. They close their stomata. They reduce their functions. They trust that the sun will return. Imagine if we did the same. If we gave ourselves permission to stop pushing when night falls, to stop performing, to stop reaching, and just, for a while, to be leaves on the branch, taking in the darkness without fear. You too breathe in rhythms. You too have stomata of your own kind. Moments when you open to the world and moments when you need to close and protect what's inside. You too carry sunlight from your days into the long rest of night. The world will ask much of you, but rest is yours to claim. It is not a luxury. It is not a delay. It is life rooted in stillness. Tonight, you've traveled through the leaves, the roots, the soil, and the silent breath of green things. You've listened to how the forest holds its breath. You've watched stomata open and close like eyes. You've felt the cool quiet of a world that keeps moving, even when it looks like it's sleeping. And now, as this journey slows, you're invited to do the same. Let your breath fall into that shared rhythm, with plants, with soil, with starlight. Let your mind close its stomata. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts grow smaller, simpler, fainter, like the air between trees, like the hush between heartbeats, like moonlight on leaves. The forest does not rush. The leaf does not force its breath. The root does not chase the Sunday. And yet everything thrives. So sleep now, not to escape, but to return, to remember what the plants already know, that you are allowed to rest, that you can bend and not break, that your breath, your quiet rhythm, your stillness is enough. And in that stillness, in that sacred pause, resilience begins, just like it does in the garden, just like it always has, beneath the trees. Good night, and may your dreams be rooted in peace and in green.